Okay, so today I thought we'd have a look at how we could maybe think about getting into abstraction or just simply play with creativity and simplify things. I think a lot of people find it very difficult to get started with abstraction but might really like the idea of doing it, but it's very hard to find a way to start. So I'm going to offer some sort of limited exercises where there's just a limited range of things we can do. So we kind of put some parameters in, and then we don't have endless choice, because actually that can make it very, very difficult. So I've made these earlier, so basically thinking about oval shapes and scale of oval shapes and different densities of two different kinds of yellow. So we've got cadmium yellow here and lemon yellow here, and a lot of the paler tints are lemon yellow. On the other sheet we've got lemon yellow and phthalo blue. So this sheet here is one range of colours, this sheet here is another range of colours, although they make quite a nice double page spread. So I've done one layer of colour and I'm using inks, but I'm watering them down so I get a variety of depth of colour depending on how much water has been added. So the very pale yellows would have had a lot of water, and the darker, brighter yellows would have had a very small amount of water added. So I'm going to work over the top, and what's quite nice to do now is to experiment with some overlaps. So you can think about just an outline of a shape, which is quite nice, or make a fill and actually take a colour. So I've actually moved up to a different colour. It's still within this kind of quarter of the colour wheel, so I would call this an analogous colour, which is basically you take a quarter of the colour wheel, and so those colours that are next door to one another are called analogous colours. So we've got, I'm going basically through from lemon yellow through to red, and orange, would it be an orangey red, I think. So I'm going to start with this slightly richer sort of browny orange, and just basically add some shapes over the top. I don't want to completely conceal what's underneath, and I can think still about size. So yeah, and if I do a fairly watery wash, it will be quite pale. I might keep it quite delicate for this. So I've got a brush here that I'm using for this, which is a number 7, the Pro Art, and it's got a very, very nice point. So if I'm doing something like this project where I'm drawing with the brush effectively, I really want to make sure that I have something that's got a really excellent point. If it's got a blunt tip or if it's really splayed, it's not very nice to work with at all. So I'm just going to slightly shift my colour there and go over the top with slightly different colours. It's got a little bit of extra yellow in it, which may not look that different on the screen. Let's see, a little bit brighter. So I have another pool next door, which has had quite a lot of water, and this is a gold ochre in the Schminker Aero colour range. So it's a type of watercolour ink. So I've got a little blob of colour there. I'm just going to move that around. So this is a slightly richer and different yellow. And basically what I'm doing is we're still not making anything realistic. So what's quite nice about it is your mind can just play with shapes. So if you pick out an area that you like the look of and you think it needs something, then you can add another little shape into there. And it's basically, you're free to do what you like and to see what happens when you start to overlap. So things get interesting when you start to get overlaps, especially using this more watercolour style way of working. But I'm going to just limit myself shape-wise to the oval and circular shapes. I could have a hole in the middle there. They don't have to be complete. So, and of course you can keep going like this, and you can keep adding. So I'm going to go back to this more orangey colour and add a bit more of this. It's actually a Daler Manley FW ink, and it's called Red Earth. So I'll get rid of some of the paint because there's a little bit too much on the brush. So make an outline. If you want to get a nice sharp edge, make an outline first and then infill. So it's a lot easier to do an outline, and it acts like a little dike really around the outside, and then you can just fill in the centre and sort of pull up against those edges, and you keep your original outline. So I quite like these ones that are just an outline. A few more of those. And as you start to layer it up and add other colours, it starts to create more sense of depth. So it's almost like lots of little shapes all dancing on top of one another. What I'm trying to avoid though is a very even spacing, so I want it to be a little bit random. But if you're doing an exercise like this, you could choose to have them all in lines, and the vertical and the horizontal, and it would give you a really different effect. So it's a matter of personal choice, but having some limitations is just really helpful in terms of just allowing yourself to experiment really with abstract ideas. And while you're doing this, you'll have all sorts of thoughts. You may not like it very much, but you may think, oh, that's quite interesting, I like that bit, I don't like this bit, and listen to the things that you're liking and not liking, and also listen out for what might be your creative voice that will say things like, it will actually give you a colour name or a shape name, or it will kind of point you in one direction. So I think our creative voices tend to be quite quiet, so it's learning to tune in to those and listen to what they're saying to you. And that mine just said put some small ones in, so I'm going to play with scale. Again, you could do all of them the same size, but you could equally vary the scale like this. So it's quite fun to go in with some little ones. So each time you make a mark, you sort of pause, have a look, and think about what colour you want and what sort of mark you want. And there's a lot of water on some of these marks, so I'm going to leave these to dry for a really long time because they're quite raised. If I try and work on it with my hand rested, I will smudge dramatically. I don't really want it too smudgy. There we go.